Tempe is using cameras to catch drivers speeding and running red lights. And since the program started back in June, they have handed out tens of thousands of tickets. But is it really making us safer? That's on this edition of the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast.
Taking you behind the investigation. This is the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. I'm Amy Cutler, joined by senior investigative producer Cody Lillich. We started looking into photo enforcement programs as part of our series on dangerous driving.
Yeah, this is something we've been extremely focused on for more than a year, looking into what makes our roadways so dangerous. We found that in 2024, the Phoenix metro area was number one for deadly crashes and also pedestrian deaths among big cities in the United States. And to put that into perspective, data shows from 2018 to 2022, the Phoenix area saw an average of 869 severe and deadly crashes each year. So that's a large number, and it really puts us at the top of a list that nobody wants us at the top of.
Exactly right. And it's interesting living here as opposed to being in other cities, because immediately you notice how big the roads are, how fast people drive. I think if you're from the area, you sort of take it for granted, but there are consequences associated with that.
Yeah, and the experts that you talked to in our previous reports kind of referred to it as danger by design, to accommodate the growth of this fast-growing city and metro area. The streets just started to get wide. From a normal city street, they started to get wider and wider, and the speeds began to increase, and with that became the danger. So now it's looking for solutions to bring that danger down on our city streets.
Yeah, exactly right. And in an effort to prevent this, Phoenix adopted a plan called Vision Zero back in 2022. As part of that series on dangerous driving, we looked at possible solutions. That led us to take a closer look at Tempe, which had signed on to Vision Zero 2 years earlier and was already seeing results.
So that was kind of our case study here locally. And Tempe, much like Phoenix, has had a police officer shortage. So that gets them into the situation of how do we make improvements if we don't have the people to do it? And that has meant fewer officers on the streets doing traffic enforcement. So with that in mind, the city council approved the use of red light and speed enforcement cameras. That's something that is not foreign here in the Valley, but something that they signed on to do, placing 14 fixed cameras in a fixed position and 4 mobile units that they can target based on what the data tells them. They can move it where they may need to.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the Valley, as you mentioned, has some of these cameras in other municipalities, and Tempe and Phoenix had these cameras. They did away with them. And then in speaking to the municipalities, they really stress they feel the perceptions around these cameras have changed. And we're going to go into that in a minute. But the cameras in Tempe went live in May. But there was a 30-day warning period to give drivers a chance to adjust. The city stressing this was not about making money. This was about safety. Well, 4 months in, we looked into Tempe and how many tickets they had handed out. Turns out that number is more than 21,000 citations.
But if we get people to slow down a little bit and we get people to stop at the red lights, then we can reduce the total number of collisions. But also by slowing people down, it's that severity. The faster we go, the more energy we have carrying into these crashes. That energy has to go someplace, usually goes through us.
That's Thomas Hobbold. He is the supervisor for the Tempe Police Department's photo enforcement program, and talking about the severity of those crashes. And you can hear how busy Tempe is behind him with the light rail and just the hustle and bustle of all of the traffic that the city deals with not only all of the corporate offices that are there, but also you deal with student traffic. So it's a big mix. So Amy, in your interview with him, what has he been hearing from the community? Because we have a fixed population there in Tempe, and then we have the varying population with the residents by semester, I guess you could say, with the Sun Devils that are here and then may go home for the summer or the holidays. What are they hearing from the community with this new program?
Yeah, so he explained that there really have been sort of mixed opinions about these cameras. Some people say that, they are making a difference. They are making the city safer. Certainly, if you get one of these tickets, they're $250 each. You are not appreciating that. So there have been some folks that have been more critical that say, hey, this is a money grab. It's not something that's needed. They sort of question the data surrounding all of this. But the city stresses sort of over time, they think that this is going to make us safer and people's opinions will change.
Have they seen those perceptions around the cameras change? They had that introductory warning period, and then they actually got into issuing the citations that are attached with fines. Have the perceptions changed in Tempe?
They say they have, especially since they did away with the camera several years ago. They said that the problem is on people's radar more and more. They have spent a lot of money trying to make structural changes to the roadways. There's a lot of pedestrians, more so in Tempe because you've got ASU as opposed to other valley cities. But they said that this is something that is supported by most people. Maybe they say that maybe they're not the vocal majority, but there's certainly a lot of concern, and they say that they do have the support of people there.
And we know most of these are fixed camera positions that are in places where they know it's a targeted safety area where they want to improve the accidents and incidents in a certain area. What about these mobile units? What did they tell you about those, and how will they work?
Yeah, so we should mention those fixed units specifically have signage. If drivers are paying attention, that are on the sides of the road, kind of warning drivers that they're entering an intersection where the cameras are. Then you've got these mobile units that are really meant to go into school zones. And
what do those look like?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in the past we'd seen, like in Paradise Valley, you're used to like a van that has police on the side and it's parked in the middle, sort of on the side of the road, and you know that those are the mobile units. Here, they're sort of this metal contraption that's kind of like tall, and it just looks different. But on the side of it, it says mobile photo enforcement unit. So, but they are going to be moving these around every 2 weeks. School zones, areas where they've heard from the community about speeding, and some of those will be going sort of in the sort of the side of roads that are busy arteries, not specifically at intersections. And the idea is to have a little more flexibility so that they can respond when they see an increase in accidents or issues in certain areas.
And data provided to you by the city has already shown what they say is an impact from having these cameras in place in just the third quarter. The data that the city provided said that at the intersections where these cameras are, they've had a 21% decrease in crashes compared to the last year in the third quarter. And the city has seen a decrease across the city in crashes, but at those intersections with the cameras, it's happened at a greater rate, somewhat about 5 or 6% more of a decrease that they've seen at the intersections compared to not at the intersections with these cameras. And we asked Hobbled about that and what he attributes it to photo enforcement.
Nothing else has changed at those intersections. We didn't change any speed limits. We didn't reconfigure any of those intersections. The only thing different is the red light cameras there. So I don't see how we cannot attribute that decrease to those cameras.
Tempe had these cameras in the past. There was opposition to them for a number of reasons. There are still some folks that are skeptical. What's your message to them?
We got to trust these cameras. I guess the only bad or downfall is the cameras don't have discretion, where if you get pulled over by an officer, that officer has discretion whether to write you a ticket or not.
But the city really stressing here that before you get that ticket from one of these red light cameras, there are several steps. First off, they say the vendor that they are using reviews the video 2 times, 2 separate people review it to make sure that, in fact, there has been a violation. Then it goes to the Tempe Police Department. The Tempe Police Department then tries to look up the registered owner of that vehicle and connect the registered owner to the person behind the wheel.
Because not every time you may loan your car to either, a friend or your spouse may be driving. There may be a number of factors. It might not be the person that's registered behind the wheel when you get that picture citation. You never know who, maybe the registered owner is probably not the one behind the wheel in some cases. But despite those checks, when we looked at the data, we only found 40% of the tickets issued so far in the city of Tempe have been paid, or that driver has agreed to attend defensive driving school, which is kind of the usual route that you can take if you go through the resolution process. And that's really not surprising. That's because by state law, when you get one of these citations, a city has to prove that you have actually physically received this citation. And talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, specifically, when we looked at this, by law, cities have 90 days to serve you. Tempe confirms it has hired a company, a process server, to help with that. If you are not served, that ticket is dismissed. Now, as part of an earlier story we did on this, we found many drivers who were issued tickets in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale chose to wait and see if they actually got served. Sort of another challenge about this is, if you're not the registered owner of the vehicle, on the ticket that they're giving you in the mail, they're asking you to identify the driver. So a lot of people will sort of ignore that. In some situations, an attorney said that he's seen people write the wrong name. So it kind of leaves the city, wherever you are, to kind of try to track down if it is or isn't. So there's a lot of questions there and lots of workarounds. But if you do decide to wait, you can try to avoid the process server. But if the process server gets you, you have to pay the fee for being served, which is $50.
And so that just goes directly to the process of being served. Now, many are skeptical of the city's intention with this comeback of the red light cameras and speed cameras. After all, each ticket costs a person who's issued a violation $250. That quickly adds up. I mean, that's not a small amount. Tempe denied it's about money, and here's what Hobbled said.
That's the least benefit that I think we're going to get. Cars can be replaced and stuff, but lives can't be replaced. That's our goal. Vision Zero. We want to eliminate those fatal crashes.
As a part of an earlier investigation with the city of Tempe, they pledged to use any money they made on traffic improvements focused on making their roads safer.
And we also want to mention that Phoenix is bringing back its photo enforcement program. In early 2026, they say they'll be adding cameras to 10 intersections and then have another 8 mobile cameras that'll be able to move around the city, much like we've seen in Paradise Valley and Tempe, Scottsdale, Chandler as well.
Yeah, and this has kind of been a delayed process. The city of Phoenix has initially said their goal, I believe, was to have them in place by the fall of this year, but that has been delayed. They took a while getting a contractor, and now they have the new timeline of having them in place by the spring or the beginning of next year. And most of that was because of this hesitancy that exists with cities jumping into this, because there seems to always be a resurgence of legislation at the Capitol to outright ban photo enforcement. So that's red light, speed cameras, any of that. There were 2 efforts in the last legislative session. One was a bill that would have banned it outright. That failed. And another was something that would have put something on the ballot for Arizona voters to decide whether or not these photo enforcement cameras should be banned outright. And so that would put the cities in a unique situation to where if it passes, they would have to remove these devices and get out of what could be pricey contracts. And if they are, say, like the city of Phoenix, thinking about bringing them back because we do have such a dangerous road problem that, do you want to jump into that at a time when the legislature had not found out? And it appears that was likely the reason behind some of the delays with the city of Phoenix, was waiting to see how the legislature acted. And but to give a little bit of context on that, in previous years, the Governor Hobbs had vetoed a bill that did make it to her desk, but this bill that would have put it on the ballot, she would not have that option, and it would have went straight to voters. So that was a little bit likely behind what led to the hesitancy and some of the delays in the city of Phoenix's program. But they are now going forward with a contractor that's been picked, and now supposedly the plan is in 2026 to launch these cameras. Have they indicated any specific areas where they would go? What's the timeline look like for this?
Yeah, so the city, we keep reaching out to them to get specifics on this because I know there's a lot of interest on where these cameras are going to be going. Up to this point, they say they are going to look at the data, determine where the most serious and fatal crashes are occurring, and then they're going to put those cameras in those communities. And we should mention that several of the city council members expressed concern that they would be putting them in lower income areas and sort of penalizing people that live there because there is a pretty pricey fee associated with each of these tickets. But, the city had stressed that they're going to be using the data to look, and they're going to, not try to put them all in one specific area. So we're waiting to hear where those are going to go, but we don't have any specific, they haven't released information on where they're going just yet.
And in our previous reports, we focused on how the city identifies those high injury intersections where a lot of these high risk and high injury and fatal accidents do occur in the city. And some of those we compared that to the demographics of the city and also the economic areas of the city. And it does kind of line up to be some of the economically disadvantaged parts of the city to where some of these intersections are, because we did talk a little bit about, are these areas of the city getting the appropriate amount of funding, and what could be done there as far as improvements that the city can do as well. So we have looked into the high injury network of intersections that the city knows about and is part of their traffic study program, and we've published their map on our website in our previous reports. So they have been tracking these frequent intersections where these crashes happen. So they theoretically would have a list, but it's, do you want to put a few in this district, a few in this council district? It's going to be a lot of that because you have, several different city council members who will want to see safer streets in their neighborhoods. So we don't know much about when these will be A, in place, and B, when they would turn on, but they will likely have some sort of warning period like we have seen in Tempe. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, that's what city leaders have promised, a 30-day warning period. So the cameras will be up, they'll be live, and then you would get sort of a notice in the mail alerting you that you would get a citation moving forward to kind of give people a sense that these cameras are in place. There is a fine if you're caught speeding or running a red light at these intersections.
And when it comes to Phoenix, just like in Tempe, they had these before. So this would not be something completely foreign to drivers who have been here a while, but to the large amount of people that have moved into this city since those cameras were taken down, it will be kind of a shock to the system. Why are they deciding, why now?
They are implementing this Vision Zero program, and they have just a significant officer shortage. So as part of our earlier series, we followed along with a traffic enforcement unit, and they are down a significant number of officers. You've heard it time and again, there just aren't enough officers. And so they just have had to pull people from this traffic enforcement unit. And so they haven't been able to do the kind of enforcement that we've seen in the past. And, if you're driving around Phoenix, you've probably noticed they're not really pulling anybody over for speeding or running red lights. Maybe there's a little bit of targeted enforcement in certain areas, but they've really, had this officer shortage. And so this also allows them to sort of have eyes in different places and identify people who are breaking traffic laws and fine them for doing such. And we should mention too, the pushback is with these cameras is, there were some privacy concerns and all of that. And they're saying, we're not going to hold on to this video at all. It's going to be looked at. And the cameras don't discriminate. So it's going to be anyone who's going 11 miles over the speed limit who would get one of these speed enforcement tickets.
Well, it would be very interesting to see what this city of Phoenix does, and also what happens with the continued rollout of the Tempe program, and also as we enter the new year, what may come up in the state legislature to see the future of the photo enforcement program, and if it will stay in place to lead to possibly safer roads, which is something that I think a lot of citizens can get behind if it does do what they say it will do. That sticker shock of getting that fine in the mail will definitely not wear off anytime soon for those who do get those. But I think if the safety improves, I think that's something that not many people could argue with, and may have to just pay that fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving through Paradise Valley, I mean, you know that these cameras are all along, Lincoln Drive, and so you slow down. I mean, it's amazing when you make that turn into Paradise Valley, you can just see the change in driver behavior, and so that is what Phoenix is hoping to capitalize on.
Well, that'll do it for us. We will continue to follow the rollout of this program, the reintroduction in Phoenix, and also continue tracking the safety problem on our valley roadways. For Amy Cutler, I'm Cody Lillich. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast.
The Arizona's Family Investigates podcast, hosted by Amy Cutler and produced by Cody Lillich, and a production of Arizona's Family 3 TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.